Hi everyone, I am Kapendev, and in this video we are going to look at Parin, a delightfully simple 2D game engine for the D programming language. First of all, we need to install the engine. To do that, we have two options. One of them is by using a package manager called dub. You just need to copy-paste those two commands right here into your terminal, and then wait for everything to be installed. And then you will have a window with a message "Hello World." Really simple. If you don't like package managers, there is also an option to install the engine without one. And you just need to copy paste those two commands right here that will download the engine with Git and also prepare the folder so you can make games with it in that folder. And the folder is going to look like this, and to run a game with that structure, that folder structure, we just need to go to the folder called Parin package and run a script called run. And we're going to have the same window as before. So now that we have everything working, we can look at the source code, and the code looks like this. At the top of the file we have an import that is going to include everything inside of Parin. After that we have three functions. One of them is called ready. This function is going to be called once when the game starts. Then we have the update function. This function is going to be called every frame while the game is running, and if true is returned, then the game will stop running. So the way this function works is really simple. When you return true, then it stops and we are going to continue to the next function called finish. Else, if you return false, then we are going to repeat that function. This is the loop, the main loop of the game. And at the end, the finish function is of course called when we return true from the update function. And then the game closes. That's it. And at the bottom of the file, we have a magic line that's going to create a main function with the three functions above. It exists mainly to avoid some boilerplate that you are going to write every time that you make a Parin game. So instead of writing that boilerplate, we just call this magical mixin called run game. Now that we covered the basics, let's look at the draw text function inside the update function. This function is kind of important because it's going to describe how every drawing function in Parin works. The way they work is really simple. First of all, they accept something that is going to be the data that we are going to draw. And after that, it accepts a position where exactly on the screen we want to draw the data. Then there are two optional things that we can provide. At the start of every draw function, we can provide a resource that is going to change exactly how that data that we provided in the second argument is drawn. The default resource for drawing functions for text is called engine font. You can provide it manually if you want. And the other optional resource is called a draw options. And this is going to change how something is drawn on the screen. Let's run the code one more time just to see that everything is working like before we do anything interesting. And now let's get back and provide something to the draw options. For example, we can provide a vector that is going to be the scale of the thing that we're drawing. And we want to scale the text by 2. And now, as you can see, we have text that is 2 times bigger than before. After that, something else that we can do is change the origin point of something that we are drawing. And to do that, we provide an enum called hook, and that has some values, and the value we want usually for text is called center. So now the origin point of the text is going to be the center of the text. This is going to have now a little bit of a problem because the text was at the top left of the screen, and because it is centered now, it is not exactly inside the window anymore. To do that, we just need to change the position, and we can provide here the mouse, so it's a little bit easier to move the text around. The mouse is just a function, and indeed, if a function doesn't accept an argument, then you can just not write the parentheses. And here it is, we have a text and we can move it around like that. Really simple. And that's it pretty much for Parin, at least the basics. For example, we can also try to draw a texture, even though it's not going to work, because by default, if you don't have a texture, nothing's going to be drawn, except that we are going to see something, and that is mostly an indicator that we don't have a resource. Let's try to draw that texture position 8 and 9, why not? And as you can see, we have like a rectangle here that is basically something telling us that something is wrong. We can try to load the texture. And to do that, we are going to go in the ready function and say, look, we have a texture that's going to have the value of that thing that we are going to load, called Parin atlas.png. We don't even need to provide the real path because everything by default in Parin is loaded from a folder called assets that is relative to the final executable. We are going to provide that texture later, and by later I mean right now, after I have created this static variable texture ID. But we can run it one time just to see that everything is working correctly. As you can see, nothing really happened, but we got an error at the terminal telling us that at line 10, we tried to load the texture that doesn't exist. So let's copy that texture from somewhere. It's usually available actually in the Parin repository, in the assets, and here it is. We can copy paste that to the assets folder like that. Now we have it in the assets folder. And if we try to run now the game, we are going to see the texture. Probably not. Why not? Because we don't draw it right now. Yes. Let's go here in the function and provide the texture like that. And now we have the texture right here. Really simple. To learn more about the engine, you can check the documentation part of the engine. This part includes things like examples, a cheat sheet that is kind of like the Railib one, and a talk page that tries to explain in more detail how things work. You can also generate local documentation about the code if you are more of a code guy by just copy pasting those commands. For example, in this video we can copy an example from the basics folder, and there is the one example that is kind of interesting is the platformer example. And this example is trying to show how you can use the physics engine of Parin. Parin comes with a basic arcade physics engine, and it's really easy to use. It looks like this. We can copy the code, put it in our main file like that. I have already copy pasted here. And now we just need to run the example like this. And you can see we have a platformer, we can jump around, there are collisions, we can be on the platform and move, and the platform is going to move us around too without any issues and stuff like that. I'm not going to show every example in this video, but yeah, that is pretty much it about Parin. I hope this video helps in some way to explain some things about it.